Hi everyone and welcome to week 2 of this course. So today we'll be talking about the logical framework. But before that, let me introduce you one diagram that we use when we want to represent how policies are developed. This is a policy cycle. In this diagram here, you can see that at the beginning we have an issue, a problem that we want to resolve. And to do this, we actually design a program or a project. So we identify objectives, strategic objectives, specific objectives, and operational objectives. We define a budget for the implementation, human resources that are allocated to the project or programs. Then the activities unfold and we expect results from them. So different levels of results, outputs, outcomes, and impacts. And in the end, well, we evaluate to see whether the expected results were obtained, and in the end to see whether the problem was solved. Well, the role of the monitoring and evaluation system here is to verify that in this policy cycle the activities match the operational objectives, the outcomes and outputs reflect the specific objectives, and the impacts reflect the strategic objectives. Why did I tell you about that before talking about the logical framework? Well, that's because the logical framework is actually representing one section of that policy cycle, which is the right of the diagram. So in our case here, let's develop the logical framework. You can read the logical framework from the bottom to the top. At the beginning you have the inputs. Again, the human resources and the budget allocated. You have the activities, which is what we do with that budget and resources. The outputs, which are the first direct effects on the direct targets of your activities. The outcomes, which are the larger effects that you're expecting. And the impacts, which are the general results that you expect to actually solve the problem that you've identified at the beginning. So let me show you a simplified version of the logical framework that you have in the course. So you would have the budget and team again. Activities would be training sessions for government officers. Outputs would be that government officers acquire new skills from their participation to the training and that they are convinced as well of what they've learned. The outcomes would be, well, a change in practices. It would be here that government officers develop new policies with an aim to improve rural livelihoods. And the impacts would be that rural people benefit from the new policy. So this is the first steps, showing the expected results of your project or program. There is a second thing that you would show in your logical framework, which are actually the conditions and risks that apply to each of the steps of the logical framework. So again, from the bottom to the top, you would have the availability of budgets and people to work on the project. You would also have the availability of government officers. Are they willing to participate to the training sessions? Did we actually develop a training content that is relevant to their needs? At outputs level, you would have conditions such as are trainers good enough actually, and do government officers actually have a positive attitude toward rural livelihoods and the importance of that issue? And on. You can see that at outcome and impact level, we start taking more into consideration external factors such as political endorsement for rural livelihood, or the fact that the economic conditions are stable, or that there is no situation of civil unrest. So the logical framework is a very relevant tool when you have quite a simple project or program, because actually you can really show in one matrix, perhaps in one page in some case, what you want to achieve. But you should not consider that a logical framework is enough to actually um, develop your monitoring and evaluation system. One very important thing is to actually start asking questions about that matrix. And these questions can be questions that you would ask about the achievements of the results, but also about the conditions and risks that are likely to impact the way your program will deliver. So in this case, we could have some questions. We would call them M&E questions or performance questions sometimes. That will target the most important steps in your project or program. So we would say, was the training effective in bringing new knowledge to participants? We can say that it's an important precondition to any impact that you are expecting to have. Did the government implement a dialogue mechanism following our efforts? And at impact level, can we prove that our program made a difference? This would be the same for the conditions and risks. For instance, do governments follow FAO strategic objectives with these policies? And is the political climate favorable to our program?